Next on News Talk, AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show.
And we're on as we are every Thursday with our regular Thursday guest, Dr. Christian Kopff. Dr. Kopff, thanks for joining us.
It's great to be talking to you, Brian.
Millennials and the situation of millennial graduates ending up back home again. Can you tell us about that?
Well, it's something that interests me as someone who teaches at a university. What happens to our kids when they graduate, as some of them actually do? Millennials are 18 to 35, more or less. 45% of college grads under 24 live at home or with a relative. That is, almost half of them are not able to start out on their own. There are right now about 40 million college grads out there who have an average debt of about $33,000. And, of course, that range, that's an average, so it ranges all over the place. But a lot of this is they're living at home. They owe a not overwhelming but substantial amount of money. And the administration's answer is to try to, give debt forgiveness to people who go to government service or free community college if they need to take an extra course. But what they really need, of course, are jobs and opportunities so they can get a job, move on, live on their own, get married, etc. And that's one of the issues. The Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is the government's statistical arm, and the Center for Immigration Studies, which is a private group, has pointed out that since the year 2000, about 2 million immigrants have entered our labor force at every level, from scientists down through busboys, whereas there are 1.5 million fewer native-born in the labor force. Indeed, the whole sum of those people who are out are quite impressive. And so we're moving in the wrong direction. We're continuing to graduate college kids. They owe substantial, though not overwhelming, amounts of money. They can't find a job. Most of the new jobs are going to, almost all of them, in fact, statistically, are going to immigrants, legal and illegal. And it's a discouraging situation because we're telling kids, you got to go to college, you should go to college, it's going to be good. But what they see in the short term, of course, in the long term, college education is a great investment. But in the short term, is they got to move back in with mom and dad. They have difficulty finding jobs. We're not creating new jobs, and when we are creating them, they go to immigrants, legal and illegal. So, this is something we should be talking more frankly about with our kids in college and just graduating from college.
Dr. Kopff, on the millennials ending up home again and the jobs going to, as you say, illegal immigrants, how many of the illegals end up going to college themselves across the country? I know in New York State, for example, former Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver, who was just arrested, not that that has anything to do with his view, but Assembly Speaker Sheldon Silver wanted to have the illegals be able to get free college education.
Right. The good news is he has a lot of free time to be interviewed by you if you want to interview him, because
this is true.
He's not busy anymore that he's been arrested. We have the same thing. The regions here, in theory, the Republicans had a majority, but of course one Republican went and voted with the Democrats to give illegals in-state tuition. At least they could be paid out-of-state tuition, right? They come here from another country. But by the way, the problem with new jobs includes both legal and illegal, but of course the number involving legal is smaller than the number involving illegal. Yeah, the point of sending them to college, here's the problem, and we're involved in this now at my school and schools all over America, is we want more people to go to college, but we have almost everybody who can profit from college going to college. And although the absolute top level of green card legal immigrants are H-1B, are people with great skills, college education, postgraduate education, but they're a very small number, absolutely. The great majority of these people on the bottom are people who haven't gotten through high school in their own country. They send their kids here and they drop out of high school. They have no commitment to education. And there's a very small number of them who are you can't get into the University of Colorado without a high school degree. Half of these people, and even more in some places, are dropping out of high school. Now, the ones who get in, who do work hard enough, often do well because they're smart enough to know they need to go to college in this country. But it is somewhat irritating that they get to pay, when you have a state institution, they get to pay in-state tuition when they're not even here legally. They're being rewarded for their illegality. And that, I think, demoralizes and angers many Americans who think that we ought to be playing by the same rules for everybody and not making special provisions for those who've broken our rules.
Dr. Kopff, when I was 18, students who did not know exactly what they were going to do went to college, and they might major in liberal arts until they made up their mind. Is that the case so much now that students will go to college right out of high school, or has it gotten so expensive that there's a little bit less of that?
Well, you see the whole range. There are kids who put it off for a year. There are kids who go to community college for a couple of years because you can satisfy most of the basic level courses at community college. And in fact, at a big school, I don't mention my own especially, but at big schools, you'll very often get these lower level courses taught by graduate students, not by regular professors, where at community college, you'll often have a real professor teaching the course in a smaller course. So we do have increasingly, I notice this even in honors courses, we'll have kids who their first 2 years were done at community college. And they then get a degree, and they then transfer to the state university for the major, basically. And majors are often viewed as being pre-professional now, as we have 3 biology departments, all focused, one on research and one on getting you into med school, and one on the other, range of health-related activities in this country. Now, physics isn't like that. Physics is still a liberal arts degree. Math is still a liberal arts degree. Obviously, the languages, etc., are liberal arts degrees. But even a school like University of Colorado, which has a long commitment to liberal arts, finds itself pressured into doing pre-professional work. And many schools like Colorado State, north of us, or Michigan State, I'm sure there's a bunch in New York, if I knew more about the New York situation, the majors are not liberal arts majors. They're not teaching to be an articulate and critical citizen. They're preparing you for a job and not preparing you to be a citizen in most cases.
And we're talking with Dr. Christian Kopff, University of Colorado in Boulder. He's our regular Thursday guest. Dr. Kopff, we're talking about, so far, college students, millennials, who's winning in the job market. A big topic this week has been vaccinations. We see Rand Paul, the Kentucky U.S. Senator, has been at the center of that. The first thing that happened was Rand Paul came out and said that he's aware, and he's a doctor. He said he was aware of many cases where young children developed what he called mental issues after getting vaccines. And then afterwards, Rand Paul took a lot of heat in that from the press, so he went out and got himself vaccinated. There's a picture of him rolling his sleeve up and getting the shots there. Your thoughts on the whole Rand Paul controversy and vaccinations in general?
Well, there's both the bigger issue, what are the side effects from the massive vaccinations that we do, and what are the side effects involving children as opposed to adults? Nobody thinks that Rand Paul is going to develop autism if he gets vaccinated when he's, I don't know how old he is, but is he 45 or 50? I mean, the question is, what effect does it have on children? That's what bothers parents. And most of the things that we know is there's a whole bunch of us, who used to go and get these flu shots, and then, they vaccinate you against a flu that doesn't happen, and you get the flu anyhow, and you say, what am I doing here? What we're really worried about is it going to hurt the children? There is no convincing scientific proof that the various vaccinations that are out there lead to autism. On the other hand, there are elements, including mercury, in some vaccines which, at the wrong level, I was going to say right, but the wrong level can have bad effects on children. Again, we're talking about children. The leading discusser of this is John F. Kennedy Jr.
You mean Robert Kennedy Jr.?
Kennedy Jr., I'm sorry, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Bobby's son, and he has been very strong on arguing that we are somewhat reckless in what we give little kids. The amounts of dangerous material in these vaccinations is not enough to hurt an adult. No one doubts that, by the way. But the question is, in order to prevent these diseases, you need to give them to children. And most scientists and most doctors I talk to are convinced that the vaccinations are safe and that there's not good evidence that they cause trouble. But I will say that parents are bothered, and when a distinguished leader of the environmental movement, like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., says there's a problem here. He's not saying it's a pandemic. He's not saying that but he is noticing that there is an increase in autism. Is an increase in brain problems with children, and until we know why, it's not crazy for a parent to be worried. Let's put it that way. On the other hand, we've now decided to turn this into a political issue where only Republicans are bothered by this, and that's just not true. That just isn't true. We're supposed to believe. I mean, Megyn Kelly's wonderful on this. The science says, yes, ma'am, but science is about critically asking questions, and unfortunately, or it used to be. Unfortunately, that's not true anymore. Science is now about, we're scientists and we all have to agree, or otherwise people will doubt our infallibility. And anybody who was involved with the weather in New York State over the past, couple of weeks knows that we don't always know. Science is sometimes wrong, and that, when our own children are involved, parents need to have a very strong voice in what is done with their children.
Now, this raises another issue you just brought up, Dr. Kopff. Vaccinations being forced. I was talking to one parent who felt that she was against vaccines, a mother who was against vaccines, and she feels that there's a lot of pressure on parents who don't want to do that from what she referred to as nanny state types who wanted to possibly take away her children or force them into a orphanage or whatever so that they can have vaccines. Is there a little bit of that going on too?
Yes, it's part of a larger pressure that the state knows more about children than parents do, and that and it's very hard to get people willing to say parents have the primary responsibility, and that may mean in some cases, in some areas, I think there should be a state and local issue, that some parents may decide that they need to homeschool or they need to join a parochial school or found a private school. I think that's a good thing, not a bad thing, frankly. But when you actually look at places like Marin County in California, which is a very wealthy area with a lot of private school, the majority of the kids there haven't been vaccinated with some kids, some vaccines like polio, etc. Nobody's been questioning their effect. But there are people, poorer people who don't get it done because either they're illegal or they never notice the rules. But there are also people on the top of our society who are also saying, not for my kids, those are for the ordinary kids. And if public schools want to have a rule about vaccination, it's pretty hard to see that they don't have the right to, and they certainly have the power to do so. But it also means that parents need to consider that they shouldn't be bullied, and if they feel sincerely that it's not right for their kids, they may want to think about homeschooling, private schools, and parochial schools.
We're talking with Dr. Christian Kopff, University of Colorado in Boulder, our regular Thursday guest. We'll continue our conversation in just a moment. We're back on the Newsmaker Show with University of Colorado's Dr. Christian Kopff, University of Colorado in Boulder. Dr. Kopff, Dinesh D'Souza, the professor intellectual from New York City, who he's not originally from New York City, but he teaches at a school in New York City. He made a statement recently on Newsmax TV about how he was glad that Mitt Romney was not going to run again.
You know what, I was actually relieved to hear that because I think that, by and large, this is such an important office that you get sort of one real shot at it. And Romney had his chance. When we look back at the election of 2012, it was a Republican election to lose. He lost it. So while I wish him well, I'm relieved that he's out of the running the next time around.
But, we each get one chance to run for the presidency. Well, William Jennings Bryan obviously didn't know that. He ran 4 times. D'Souza is an interesting figure. His own role in elections is having his poor friends donate money that he gave them, which it does get around our laws. And he did plead guilty for one count of that, which I think he wears one of these little bands around his leg that shows the government where he is. I don't know if you've ever met him or talked to him.
I talked to him briefly on the phone one day when Kevin Dorn was interviewing him. Very nice guy.
Yeah, he's very articulate. He's been a real leader, and he did a very effective movie a few years ago, 2016, Obama's America, which was quite clear about his disapproval of the president's policies.
You know, I saw that movie, and afterwards I said to the regular host of the Newsmaker show, Kevin Dorn, I said, I saw that movie about Obama. Dinesh portrayed Obama as a man whose father was an immigrant, whose father did not like America getting involved with Middle Eastern wars and did not like the British Empire or the Americans getting involved with wars. Gee, Kevin Dorn, what's your problem with Barack Obama?
Yes, exactly. What's the difference between having your father come from Ireland or from Kenya? You have the same attitudes toward the British.
Well, you know, I said to him, I said, gee, it looks like you two have an awful lot in common. We're talking with Dr. Christian Kopff, University of Colorado in Boulder. Yeah, Dinesh D'Souza, a very interesting guy, makes a good movie. No doubt about that. Dr. Kopff, we've talked about millennials, vaccinations, Ron Paul, Mitt Romney bowing out of the race. What about Hillary?
Well, every time you see polls about Hillary, she's the overwhelming choice of Democrats. She's the overwhelming choice of millennials, by the way. I was looking up those statistics, too, about what millennials think about these things. But the problem is, every once in a while she'll say or do something, and then her polling drops dramatically. Unlike her husband, she's a very bad campaigner. And when people are reminded of her, they then remember why they doubted her. So you can't run for the presidency by avoiding public attention, by avoiding interviews. And she is not a good campaigner.
We've been talking with Dr. Christian Kopff, University of Colorado in Boulder. Dr. Kopff, any final thoughts before we go?
Well, one of the things I found out about millennials is they don't know who the senators from their states are, and I thought to myself, how lucky they are. I'd rather not know in most cases.
Dr. Christian Kopff, thank you very much.
Great to talk to you.